Hello, Federico. Good afternoon. Lovely to see you. Federico Bonelli is with us with Berry Icons platform and found time to be with us to answer some questions. Welcome to our platform. Thank you so much for joining.
Olga, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Federico, I'll start with our traditional question since we started this series during the lockdown. How it was for you as a principal dancer of the Royal Ballet, well-established, well-recognized dance around the world, how this came as a total shock, how you've been managing to live, to do your training during this difficult for everyone time. Can you share with us?
Well, it was, I suppose, a bit of a shock. I mean, I remember reading about the virus. I think at the beginning when I was first aware, I was actually in Japan performing in a gala. And people started to talk about this and about the fact that maybe theaters were going to close. But at the time, I thought it was something localized to China, maybe to Japan and South Korea and the Far East. And then, of course, it wasn't anymore, and it got here. So the last 2 weeks before the lockdown happened, I was very aware that we might have to stop performing. And it was that strange feeling of we were still performing, we were still rehearsing for the next production, and we had no idea if that was going to happen or not. Obviously, you still want to work as hard as you can until you're told then it's not going to happen. And then, of course, we actually stopped going to the opera house a week before the lockdown was officially introduced here in the UK. And ever since, I've been taking ballet class in my kitchen, just over there. Trying to turn.
Of course, your beautiful photos and videos. You've looked as elegant as always, almost like on a big stage.
Well, thank you. You're very generous. You know, it was very strange at the beginning. Obviously, you know, practical things like slippery floor and hard surfaces to jump on and all these kind of things you need to navigate. But also, it was very strange not to leave the house and to spend most of the day indoors. And I have to say, it's quite strange, but I almost got used to it now. It's been such a long time now that I kind of expect not really leaving the house except for a walk in the park or maybe going for a bicycle ride or something like that.
Well, as many said, obviously this period changed so much in us and in our lifestyle. Even when we will be allowed to do anything we want, I'm sure lots of adjustments will be made.
Yes, it's not gonna go back to anything that feels normal in the very near future. I mean, I'm always conscious that I've been very lucky. I have a house to spend the lockdown with my family. None of us has been sick. None of my family in Italy and Japan, everybody's been healthy so far.
Wonderful. I'm happy to hear that.
And I'm very aware that lots of people have it more harder than we do as my family. So it's a difficult situation for very many people. Of course, you know, the theaters being closed and we don't know when they might open again. So there is this uncertainty about the future for us as well. We all have to find a way to deal with that.
Absolutely. It's a new reality, new normality, as we say. Obviously, there are talks that when performers will be allowed to go back on the stage and certain performances will be going ahead. We will be able to do these performances only for a limited number of people in the audience, which of course is going to be very difficult for many different reasons. How would you imagine your first performance when you will be going back on the stage and finally performing with either very small audiences or
yeah, it's a strange thought. Now, obviously, you know, for us dancers, even just going back to the theater and being able to train in a proper ballet studio, that would be already such a good thing. I mean, I'm sure I will feel so happy the day that I can do that. And there are lots of companies I read on the internet, and I've started doing that in a very different way from usual, with very few people in the studio, so still keeping distance. And it's just taking ballet class, not even rehearsing or doing any other thing. It's just taking ballet class. But I'm pretty sure that for many dancers, that will be an amazing feeling after 2 months of being, you know, closed in in a house, which is
absolutely, absolutely. Will you agree? Will you agree that as much as, of course, we've been benefiting from numerous masterclasses, ballet masterclasses, and seeing online productions, would you agree that nothing will replace the essence of the live show, of live ballet, to be able to?
Yes, and I mean, absolutely, absolutely. It's been amazing, the kind of solidarity that has been shown online, with so many people offering live classes. And I mean, I've taught a few classes myself, and that has been amazing, and really hopefully has helped a lot of people. I mean, I can tell you, teaching a class online actually helps me, because it means that there is something to work towards. There is something that I want to get ready and do well. So this.
And during this period, you've discovered teaching talents. Now,
yes, I mean, I have been teaching here now and then, sometimes in the past as well. Obviously, when you're at home, and motivation and keeping your motivation up is a very important part of mental health, and of keep going. And so having something, knowing that people are gonna tune in on Instagram or Zoom or wherever to take your class, means that you have something to work towards. So it's been a very beneficial thing for me as a teacher. And when I've taken classes as a student, it's been also greatly helpful. So that's been great to see how the ballet world has come together. Now, I have to say, you were saying nothing is going to be like live performance. I really think you're right. I've been watching so much online. As you know, so many companies, so many theaters have been streaming performances, and actually probably much more than I usually see. I try to go to the theater very often, and yet now you can see New York, you can see St. Petersburg, you can see I don't know,
just
all over the world, right? You can see everything. So usually I'm not able to do that as much. So it's been great on that respect. And yet, I find it. I miss the theater. I have to say, I miss the theater. The other day I was watching a live, well, no, it wasn't a live stream, but it was a stream of an old performance from the Opera House. And you know, when they show at the beginning, just the red curtain closed, I had a pang, you know, in my stomach, and said, that's the place I used to be all the time. What can you do? And I don't think we're going to be back that soon. So we're just going to have to adapt to things being quite differently. And
to change the subject, because we, of course, we want to be very, very positive and patiently waiting for the times when everything will change. Can you name, and of course you have such an extensive repertoire, can you name a few of your very special, very favorite roles, to which you always come back with a special pleasure and attention?
Yes, that's a question I get often, and I always struggle, because there are a number of things that I always like to dance. Usually I fall back on some of the roles, my favorite roles, that I recently danced. So I recently danced Onegin, which is definitely something that I really enjoy playing. Just before, not long before that, was Manon, and that's another. So I played the Greer, and it's a wonderful role that I really enjoy playing as well. There are quite a few, and you know, I'm lucky to dance in a company with such a varied repertoire, and wonderful musics, and wonderful stories to tell.
Absolutely. What is your personal relationship with the contemporary repertoire? What does it mean to you? Which sides of your personal character, you as a person, Federico as a person, opens when you do contemporary dance? And maybe you could name a few choreographers who've been particularly influential on you.
To me as a dancer, well, you know, it really depends what you're dancing, because of course contemporary choreography changes so much depending on what you're dancing, and it can be, I love dancing it. I don't want to limit in what I can express, and if you can express it in many different ways, in a classical ballet or in a contemporary ballet, and sometimes it's hard to say which is which, right?
Exactly.
I see it as dance and movement, all of it really, and experiences that I really enjoyed. So the creation of Wolfworks and performing in Wolfworks was something quite special for me. That is Wayne McGregor, and dancing with Alessandro Ferri was very special. And now I've named one, but there are, I'm sure, many other instances where I really enjoyed being part of the creation and basically participate in making something new, something good, something that tells an interesting story. And sometimes there is no story, sometimes it's pure movement and emotion.
Emotion, exactly, expression and emotion. Well, we love watching you in classical roles and in contemporary very much. You've been trained in Italy and then in Switzerland, and then of course you ended up um, in London at the Royal Ballet. You went through different influences in schooling, in way of performing. How did you manage to combine all these schools and influences? Would you say that now, for you as a dancer now, you're benefiting from all these different influences?
Yes, so actually I did all of my school in Italy, in Turin. Obviously I started when I was younger in my hometown in Casale Monferrato, which is a very small town. I would say then probably the common thread to my schooling was the Cuban school of ballet. So I had Cuban teachers on and off since I started really. And then I had many Italian teachers that were very influential as well. Once I finished my school though in Italy, in Switzerland, I was dancing as a professional in a company in Zurich Ballet. After that, I went to Dutch National Ballet in Holland, and then
exactly, yes, and you went to Poland, yes.
So yes, a lot of different styles and ways to approach. I have to say, I think I was lucky to have so many influences, and I am a bit of a synthesis of all of the things that I've learned, or I hope that I've learned, and I'm an expression of my experience, and then of my own personality, where I give a personal interpretation to the things that I've learned and to the things that I'm performing. Definitely been in the Royal Ballet for the past 15 years, over 15 years, has been a major influence in my learning, my development as an artist. And so I definitely learned a lot with the Royal Ballet, for sure.
Fantastic. Well, talking about this multicultural influence, of course, in your family, you have another wonderful dancer who comes from a completely different culture. How do you manage this artistic and personal dialogue coming from such different cultures and worlds, basically?
Yes, Hikaru, my wife, is Japanese, and she went to school at the Paris Opera Ballet School. And but then after that, we actually both danced in the three companies. So we were lucky enough to be able to move together. And I think probably comes because we were looking for similar things. So we wanted to dance similar kind of repertoire. And then we were able to actually move at the same time together, which is not a given. We've been very lucky with that.
This is really wonderful, yes.
I think Hikaru is definitely my partner, not just in life, but also in my profession. I trust her very much. And so if I dance, I ask her to look at me and the other way around, and we watch performances together. We discuss what we've seen, and not just ballet, but we try to go to the theater as well. And there is a real dialogue that keeps us going. And I think that's what we've been traveling in a similar direction. And that's how we managed to stay together, basically, and from an artistic point of view as well as a couple.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Could you give an example of one very, very powerful memory and experience? It can be negative or it can be positive, and hopefully, and should be positive, from starting from young age when you were studying ballet, and maybe later during your performing career, something which will always stay with you and will be very, very, this moment was a very, very powerful moment of your life as a dancer.
So I was trying to think quickly, and from when I was a student, I will say two things. And one is this memory that I have of being on stage. And I think I must have been 10, 11, 12, so very young, and end of the year performance with my amateur school at the time. It wasn't a professional school, but it was just the amazing impression that I had of getting ready for a performance, actually being in the wings and then walking on, and I knew the audience was there. I couldn't see it. It was dark. And it was that amazing feeling of movement and music. That is something that stays with me. It's a mental picture that I have here. Another picture that I can tell you about is, I remember, so I told you my teachers were Cuban. And I remember when I was, again, quite young, I must have been 12. And I remember seeing Carlos Acosta for the first time. So he had come to Italy to train from Cuba. And I mean, he's an amazing dancer now. He was an amazing dancer then. And so I remember the actual picture that I have is that I saw him doing a piqué arabesque. And he just stayed for a couple of minutes in that position. And for me as a kid, that was like, wow, I've never seen that in my life. And so it's something that I remember quite well. And from performing as a professional, well, those are the times that, have you ever heard people talk about being in the moment? Is that, now I've performed, well, I was going to say I perform all the time. Recently, I've not been performing.
Don't mention this. This is an exception for everyone in the world, you know.
Right. But usually I perform all the time, and I enjoy performing pretty much all of the time. Now, there are some very special moments that stay, you know, really in your head. And are those moments where everything comes together. There is that feeling, it's a unified feeling. You're not executing steps, you're just being the character, being the movement, being the music. And well, I told you before, the Guerrero was one of my favorite moments. I have this image in my mind of one of those performances in the third act. And it's when I've just stabbed the jailer who's been, I just stabbed the jailer, and I have this amazing solo where you're going mad. I think the Guerrero is going mad. And the music is very dramatic, the movements are as well. And that is something that I've got here. It's one of those highs. It was quite amazing.
Very, very powerful moment. You've mentioned, of course, Carlos Acosta, and I would like to move to another question. Would you name a few of your ballet heroes and gurus? I'm sure Carlos is one of them. Can you name woman or man? And obviously from the past generation, it could include anyone.
Olga, it's quite difficult because there are so many. I mean, I named Carlos because I remember that particular moment when I was a kid. And I have to say, I've been very lucky to dance with so many amazing dancers throughout my career. And I think I can learn so much from everybody. And, you know, you learn from from people that are slightly older than me. I remember learning so much from Johann Kober, Jonathan Coe, you know, when I first joined the Royal Ballet. And then I learn now from the younger generation that is coming up. And,
this is fantastic to know that you, with all your mastery and experience, you're saying that you're learning from younger dancers. Good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yes. And then, I mean, I've been lucky enough to dance with other companies and to travel the world to a certain extent. And then when you go to international galas, some of which you've organized yourself.
Well, I was just going to mention the very, very first time when we met. It was 2006, which was an amazing event. And in fact, that was the beginning for this event, which became an annual event. And it was dedication to the legendary Maya Plesietskaya, her 80th birthday. And
yes, I remember very well.
She was in person. And in fact, she delivered a short but majestic performance on the stage.
Didn't she dance Béjart? I think she danced solo by Béjart.
She did, and it was unforgettable, of course, moment on the stage of the Royal Opera House.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, I didn't mention any woman, and I'm
you can.
Absolutely. I think I learned so much from each partner that I dance with, and I've danced with
another beautiful answer you gave, and I'm sure all your female partners, when they will hear this, they will be delighted.
The fact is that, especially when you really find a connection with somebody and you dance, you have to follow and go along and be followed. So there is that amazing partnership that happens, not all the time, but when it does happen, it's something that you learn a lot from.
Thank you very much. And my final question would be, what would be your best advice for the young generation of dancers?
Right at this moment, I would say that the important thing is to move forward, and the important thing is to keep in mind where do we want to get, which is, you know, we probably will we might not get to something that we call normal, but we are moving forward, and the importance is to get there. Not so much how we get there. You might be stuck in a house where it's difficult to do your training, and the important thing is to do whatever you can and accept that this is not going to be perfect, but we keep moving forward and we keep doing what we can, I think.
Thank you very much, Federico. It was a pleasure to see you. We can't wait to meet you, to watch your performances, to work.
Me neither. I can't wait to perform again, and I can't wait to see so many other people perform.
Of course, we have to be patient, and it's going to happen soon. Thank you so much. It was a really great pleasure. Thank you for joining us, Federico Bonelli, and we are going to see you soon. Thank you, Federico.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.